Hello. Happiness is often thought of as a very personal thing, and it is a kind of inside job, and it's dependent on many causes and conditions, of course. And happiness at work is often thought of as a kind of soft concern, something that's an optional extra for organisations to consider. But I think of happiness at work as a kind of thriving. And when people are thriving, they're energised, they care about what they're doing, they're enthusiastic. And this seems fairly important in terms of workplaces being productive and creative and innovative. And when we think of how much time we spend at work and how it profoundly shapes so many of the aspects of our lives, it's a really important issue. And I wonder if we could think about work and workplaces becoming a site of transformation, not only for the people that are in those workplaces, the individual lives that might be transformed, but also for society as a whole. And there's a guy called Paul Gilbert who offers a really useful model of motivation. And I like to think of happiness at work through the lens, the biology and psychology of motivation. And he puts forward these three systems, and he says when they're working in balance, people are basically feel safe, they feel satisfied and energised, and they feel connected. So I'm going to talk a little bit about these three systems and then just check in about how mindfulness, which is the work I'm involved in the world, could assist here. So the first system is the threat system, and human beings are highly motivated to avoid threats. And if we're in a workplace that is threatening, overly critical, undermining, we're going to be motivated to put a lot of energy into managing that threat rather than into doing the good work we're paid to do. And we'll be in a state of toxic stress. And when we're in that state, we're basically being flooded with cortisol, with stress hormones, and which really undermines our performance. And we can't think well, we can't regulate our emotions, we can't be empathic, we can't read other people well in meetings, we can't take in complex information. It literally shuts down our prefrontal cortex and not so helpful in workplaces. The second system is the drive system, and human beings are highly motivated to make things happen, to feel competent, very satisfying for humans. We're naturally exploratory, creative, and have this energy to affect the world, to create things. And the drive system in a family or a workplace can be really undermined in two major ways. One is if we don't have enough say over our day-to-day operations, our little patch, this can lead to a lack of motivation and disengagement, very disempowering, sense of not being involved and therefore not caring. The second way the drive system gets undermined is if we're overwhelmed by demands. It really undermines our sense of competence and mastery and leads again to a sense of hopelessness, a disengagement. The third system is the connection system. And basically, humans are very smart mammals, and we can't forget the mammal bit. We're social creatures, and we're organised in groups, and certainly a workplace is a group. And workplaces that make an effort to include everybody, give people a sense of connection and involvement and say, are going to be a lot more successful than ones that allow a kind of splitting and divisiveness to rule. So, through this lens, the question is, that hopefully we'll be examining on this day of looking at happiness at work, how do we meet these basic human needs to be safe, to be satisfied, and to feel connected, and to see into how we can actually bring this forth in workplaces? Building a culture that's open and transparent and safe for people, and giving people enough say over their work, and fostering a sense of connection and involvement is really important. So how can mindfulness help? Mindfulness is basically a training in learning how to pay attention to everything that's going on in this moment in a purposeful way, to our bodily state, our emotions, our thoughts, our mind states, and also to the world around us, to the context, people, what's happening. And it involves both some formal practice, training, and also the process of bringing what you learn in this formal practice and the changes that happen through doing that formal practice right into your context in work and elsewhere in your life. And I won't go into a great detail now, but I just want to point to a few of the things that we now have quite good evidence for in terms of mindfulness training. One is it helps people with physiological regulation. So with a little bit of training, the whole nervous system moves into more balance. So all the important systems of the body, like the ones that regulate sleep and digestion and recuperation and motivation, in fact, are regulated. They're operating well in balance. So people are less driven to overdo things or underdo things. So less driven to overdrink, overeat, overwork. Very helpful to have this basic physiological regulation being supported. Mindfulness training is also a kind of practical method for developing emotional intelligence. It helps with learning how to recognise our emotions, to name them, to communicate skillfully about them, to recognise other people's emotions, to attune. Very helpful in a workplace. And this confidence in working with one's own emotions and the emotions of others really can help people feel more confident meeting challenges with openness and curiosity rather than that threat system arising, and with interpersonal communication. Very helpful. Another thing it offers us is more flexibility cognitively. So what people usually find is they become more aware of their filters, their mind states, their mindset, kind of habitual limitations in how they think. So people generally open up and become a little bit more flexible cognitively, which opens up creativity. The other thing the training can do is put people right in the driver's seat in terms of connecting with their values. It's real work in engagement with values and bringing this forth in a palpable way. So really helping people connect their values to their day-to-day lives. And this leads to also being in the driver's seat in terms of behavioural change and increasing people's sense of authority in their lives to choose, how am I going to look after this moment, this body, this mind, this context, this meeting. We find people feeling a lot more capacity to choose and take responsibility for their choices. So I really look forward to meeting you and exploring more at this day that Manish is establishing for us. I think it'll be very rich and engaging. So hopefully see you there.